Okay, if you have just come over from one of my social media platforms, welcome. We left this with an emotional offer sitting right beside the Eight of Cups. So somebody is either returning after walking away, or somebody else is deciding whether what is being offered here is actually enough to make them stay. But underneath this all, like we said, we do have the Temperance and the Two of Cups. So there is a connection here that potentially wants healing. The question is whether these two people can actually create something healthier than what existed before. So let's dive in. Okay. We have the Page of Cups clarified with the Eight of Cups. I think this pair becomes more interesting when at the bottom of the deck we have the Two of Cups and Temperance. Okay, that Page of Cups is an emotional offer, a message, an apology, somebody reaching out. It can be tentative because this is a page. It's not somebody necessarily arriving with everything figured out. It can be a simple, I miss you, I've been thinking about you, can we talk? But then we have the Eight of Cups. Somebody walked away, or somebody is considering if this is enough, and they will walk away rather than accept it. I think there's probably been a period of separation here that has been needed. Temperance is all about healing and patience and bringing things back into balance, and just sometimes you cannot heal something while you're still standing directly in the middle of the chaos. The distance is necessary. So perhaps somebody did walk away because this connection had become so emotionally unbalanced. And now we have the Page of Cups appearing again with that emotional door potentially opening. But I do want to be careful here. A Page of Cups is not enough to undo whatever caused this Eight of Cups to happen. An apology is lovely. A message is lovely. Someone admitting they have feelings is lovely. Who doesn't want to hear that? But what has actually changed? Because remember our first pair, Two of Wands clarified by death. Somebody had a decision to make about their future, and death is saying that old version of this situation cannot come with them. So if somebody is returning, they just cannot simply pick up where everything left off. That relationship is done. That dynamic is done. Whatever caused somebody to walk away needs to be addressed. And if these two people choose one another again, they need to create something entirely new. Clean slate. We're moving to the Four of Wands, clarified with the Page of Swords. Okay, and now we're into stability, commitment, home, celebration, building something together. It's the 11 card, isn't it? For some of you, yeah, it can absolutely represent marriage or a serious long-term relationship. And that is quite a jump from the Page of Cups. We go from a tentative emotional offer to the possibility of something genuinely established. But it's clarified with the Page of Swords. And now we have two pages in this reading. Page of Cups, Page of Swords. It's immature energy. Let's be honest. They're like toddlers. There's still learning happening here. Somebody may know how they feel, and that's the Page of Cups, but now they need to understand what creating a healthy relationship actually requires them to do. That is where I see the Page of Swords. Yes, they're learning, they're observing, they're asking questions, understanding, and yes, they can potentially be watching you from a distance. So somebody may have been keeping an eye on somebody else during this period of separation. Remain calm and stay away from the profile views for 5 minutes, though. That's not the point here. It's deeper than that. Somebody is learning. Maybe they are finally understanding why this connection didn't work before, and maybe they are seeing their own behavior differently. Maybe distance gives them perspective, and suddenly temperance underneath. Everything makes sense. Because temperance isn't fast. Healing really is. Temperance is two energies being carefully blended together until they can coexist. It is adjustment. It is compromise. It is patience. It is balance. And then comes in the Two of Cups. There is connection here. There's mutuality. There are feelings. Two people recognizing something in one another. But Temperance sitting over that Two of Cups tells me that feelings alone were never the issue. The connection needed balance. And that is different. Maybe these two people always had feelings for each other. Maybe the problem was never whether they cared. Maybe the problem was how they related to each other. One person gave too much. One person withdrew. One person chased. One avoided. One communicated. One expected the other person to develop fucking telepathy. Whatever that imbalance was, Temperance says that is what needs healing. And now look back at death. The old dynamic had to die. Not necessarily the connection, definitely the dynamic. And I think that distinction might be this entire reading. Because sometimes we assume death means this is over completely. But death is about transformation. Something can't continue in its existing form. And with Temperance and the Two of Cups underneath, perhaps what needed to die was the version of this relationship that hurt. Possibly both people, definitely one. The patterns, the behaviour, the imbalance, the fear. Whatever made somebody eventually reach that Eight of Cups and say, I cannot do this anymore. And that brings us back to the Four of Wands. There is potential for something stable. There always was. But potential does not mean somebody gets to walk back in with Page of Cups and immediately collect their Four of Wands. Absolutely not. There is work between those cards, okay? There is learning, the Page of Swords. There is healing, Temperance. There is transformation in death. And there is a choice, Two of Wands. And that is the story. So if somebody comes back with an emotional offer, do not only listen to what they say. You need to look at what has changed. Have they learned anything? Have you learned anything? Can the two of you communicate differently? Can you meet each other somewhere in the middle? Can you create balance where there was imbalance? Temperance is not asking one person to bend themselves into 17 different shapes to make the relationship work. It is mutual adjustment. And the Two of Cups underneath reinforces that. Two people. Not one person doing all the emotional labour while the other turns up occasionally with a Page of Cups and expects a fucking parade. And the Eight of Cups gives whoever walked away quite a lot of power here, because they've already demonstrated that they can leave. That matters. They are not trapped. They are not accepting something because they believe this is their only chance at love. They can look at the offer and decide whether it actually belongs in their future. And that is our Two of Wands again. So perhaps the question is not, are these two people getting back together? The better question is, can these two people create something healthier than what they had before? And I actually think the cards say there is potential. Temperance and the Two of Cups are beautiful together. Four of Wands is beautiful. There is emotional communication with the Page of Cups. There is learning with the Page of Swords. But death makes the condition incredibly clear here. Something has to genuinely change. You cannot reconcile with somebody and then immediately reinstall the exact same relationship that broke down the first time. That's not reconciliation. It's not. It's recycling. So if this person comes back, or if you are considering going back, take your time. Temperance certainly will. Do not rush because you miss each other. Do not confuse emotional relief with actual healing. Let action show you whether the transformation is real. Because maybe the Eight of Cups was not the ending. Maybe it was the space required for these two people to grow separately before deciding whether they could meet again differently. And if they can, that Four of Wands becomes interesting, doesn't it? But if nothing has changed, then death has already given you your answer. The old version cannot continue. So yes, there can be reconciliation here, but not a return to what was. Something much more difficult. A chance to create what could have been there in the first place all along, let's be honest. Balance, healing, mutual effort. Two people choosing each other without abandoning themselves. And that is what Temperance and the Two of Cups has been quietly sitting under this whole reading to tell us. Have a good day.